Okay.
Ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order.
I know you love the boardroom banners. You're gonna want to
I'm
turn
gonna
them
want to turn off.
off.
Really?
Sometimes you just get customs.
Background is fine.
Sometimes I feel like I listen to them so much, it's always in my mind now. All right, so first order of business is obviously the flag salute, so please stand. Ready, begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And then as our introduction activity today, I'd like us to go around the room, share your name, your school, the school that you represent, and what your role is. And then our opener question for today is, as a child, who was your favorite teacher or grade level and why? So I can go first because I already have. My name is Bree Van Rokel. I'm the director of school improvement. And my favorite teacher was my fifth grade teacher because she was super rigorous, but she was also really, really loving. And like she pushed kids really hard, but I just remember she would like reward us in the nicest ways. And you got this book at the end of her class that had all these like fast facts and things. And I think I still have it. It's like the most amazing notebook in the world. So I just always hoped I could be somewhat like her as a teacher.
I go next. Joel Hoff, Superintendent, Kirk County School District. The first person that came in was Miss Stoneberg, who was my third grade teacher. And she, just like a classic favorite teacher, just like this lovely lady who just loved her kids and made you love school. So Miss Stoneberg.
My name is Kelsey and part of the school board, and honestly, I think I went to college the most. I could have stayed forever in college. I love learning Spanish and flirting with Sean and so that was a good time.
Eric Osborne, school board member, and I am torn between third grade and college.
Yeah.
I don't know about the teacher, though the teacher, I guess that is the teacher.
Yeah.
Third grade teacher was awesome. College advisor for wildlife is awesome. There we go.
Cool.
Ashley Hawkins, ELT at Barnes Butte. My favorite teacher was Ms. Schupeltz. She was my high school social studies teacher, and it was just super engaging and exciting. I loved it.
So I'm Kimberly Bonner, I'm a coordinator. This was hard because it was like I had all these teachers that ran through my head at the same time, so it's hard to choose. But I think I'll say my eighth grade language arts teacher, and it had nothing to do with the content of eighth grade language arts. It was just the relationship that I had with her, and then she kept her eye on me and then hired me for my first job.
Oh,
so yeah. Yeah.
wow. I'm in Casper High School, and kind of the same. I had a fourth grade teacher who just created all the feels and connections and just was an amazing human being that knew all the things about everybody in her class and cared. And then I had a world religion professor in college, Dr. Byers, who was probably the smartest, most amazing woman I've ever met and was the most interesting class I've ever taken in my entire life. So,
Amanda Groves, Grizzly Mountain. Mr. Callan just pops in my head. Probably just he was my sixth grade math teacher, and then he ran sixth grade camp.
You were here, right?
Mhm. Awesome. Mr. Sign, he was also a math teacher.
Parker, and I support the superintendent and school board. And I think I had two favorite teachers, probably in 11th grade, and they were the business office teachers. And so I took pretty heavy schedules the first couple years. So as I got into junior year, I had a pretty light schedule. And there weren't a lot of additional classes, but they let me take like an independent business course where I just kind of did my own thing, and they gave me work as fast as I needed it. And then put me in touch with US Bank, where I was hired as an intern and completed an internship and then worked for them my senior year in high school.
That's awesome. Yeah, very cool. I chose that opener because I think it's really important as we think about data that we also connect the human part to it and the teacher part. And I know that that's at the heart of everyone in this room. And so had that on my mind as I was preparing for this. The first thing we have to do is approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting, so you all should have a copy of those. If you could please look them over and let me know if you have any questions or changes you'd like to propose. Hearing no changes or questions, we'd like to, somebody make a motion, please, to approve those minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Excellent. Okay, now we'll take a roll call vote. So, Joel,
Yes.
Kelsey? Yes. Eric?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Terry?
I don't- Does not-
You don't have to vote, but thank you. Do I vote?
Yes.
Yes, you vote. 3 yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Motion passes.
Good job, Bree.
That was the best I've done, yes, so don't worry about that. Okay, now jumping into our topic for today, is we're gonna look at our data dashboard. So this was just presented to the board on Monday. So apologize to board members that this will be a little redundant to you.
It's good to go deep. I
But-
feel we ran through them at the board meeting, so I'm actually excited that.
Yeah.
Time to go a little deeper.
Yeah, so I think it's important that we take time with, like I said, the people in the buildings doing the work to unpack this, talk about what it means. These are the questions that I'll ask us to discuss after we get a minute to look at it. What sticks out to you as key areas of celebration? What are areas that you can identify for growth for the district? And then 2 questions here. How can we better support those students in the red and yellow zones? You'll see a lot, I think, of red and yellow on here. And then for those students performing above grade level, how can we also be supporting them? Those are 2 of our board goals that I'm going to really hone in on today. And then as we plan for the 26-27 school year, which feels like a lot of the job right now, how should this data impact our planning? What things do you need? Things like that. So first, I'll pass this around, and as we will kind of discuss it together, and jump in, ask questions throughout. We'll start on the elementary side, which I think you were thinking probably the secondary side on the top, my bad. So the elementary side starts off with these green, yellow, red, iReady data. Yeah.
Same thing I saw in the main board meeting. I really want to look closer at what the questions were for that 4th grade level.
Right?
Was there one that everybody messed up in general, or? Because that's the only one I see that decreases, and it's not insignificant, 4%'s high.
Yeah, and then you see at 3rd grade, this massive jump between them, and then you see at 5th grade, just a small subtle change. Kimberly, with your elementary expertise, do you have any further context on that you could share?
Explain the question again, because I'm, which one is, what are we talking?
If you're looking at the K-5 writing assessment on the right-hand side,
Gotcha.
Kind of like we've talked a little bit too, what those prompts are, what they are. So I think that's the
Yes.
question of like, what's
Yeah.
the prompt, like what could factor into all that?
Plans in place for next year, we are doing this for ourselves. What we're asking our kids to do is like, compare and contrast 2 different. Like pieces and take all of this information from this giant mod, this whole like 6 to 8 week series. And we're asking them to do like a college level dissertation almost, and so. Like, yes, we need to still do that, and that gives teachers a lot of really good information. But it makes it look like our kids can't write. So we need to be giving you guys more of a snapshot of what our kids can do. And so we are changing what we're doing for the purpose of reporting out like this. Because our K-5 data does not match our 9 through 12 data. But I guarantee you that we are a huge part of the reason our 9 through 12 data looks like it does. You walk through our buildings and you see what's like posted in the hallways, and some of our writing is amazing. So, yeah, so to be continued. I do not like this data. our kids are much better writers than this data is showing. Because what is bringing them down is like the ideas and content. Because they are so lost in all of this bunch of information that they're trying to consolidate and analyze as 8-year-olds. So, again, to be continued.
Yeah.
They're
Different
different.
modes of writing also.
Yes, that's the other point.
The first one is an informative and the second is an opinion in at least third, fourth and fifth grade.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure for the youngers, but they are different.
And then you throw a
Yes.
narrative in there somewhere where it's like telling a story. And if you've ever heard a 5-year-old tell a story? There and here and there and everywhere.
Uh-huh.
It's like, oh. So that has a lot to do with it. Do we have room to improve? Oh my goodness, yes.
Yes.
But the biggest thing we need to be focusing on in elementary is convention.
So is that an issue with the state testing too, where everybody has the same kind of prompts, or are we supplying the prompts that we need to simplify?
We are supplying these prompts. The data you're looking at right here.
Okay.
We are supplying this from our Wharton Wisdom models. And we are moving in a different direction.
And I
In
think,
fourth grade, sorry to.
No, go.
Ask me a question and I'll keep going. So fourth grade Wit and Wisdom has been a disaster from the very beginning. We had to take out some of the books that were controversial. What ended up happening is our academic coaches and fourth grade teachers essentially rewrote that curriculum, which we're not curriculum writers. And so we cannot wait for the next few years when we move away from Wit and Wisdom. That sounds like a lot of excuses, and I don't mean it to sound that way.
But, so just to recap, do we have a solution now or
For next year, we do.
Um,
Yeah, we're gonna have different prompts.
but even from the curriculum,
We are using, so kudos to Heather, she has brought in magnetic reading, which is an intervention that is tied into iReady. And so a lot of our teachers are using magnetic even more than Wit and Wisdom at this point, and it's very good. And then along with magnetic, which is considered an intervention, there's a core curriculum. So as we move into our next adoption, that's something that we really want to dig into, is what that iReady, because imagine if we had a core curriculum that matched our online program, that matched our intervention. Wow.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier for the nonfiction that they're supplementing with.
yeah.
Magnetic has a lot of
Yeah.
nonfiction.
And I guess the question behind the question for me completely is like, is there something we can do to help to like, yeah, like, is there resources you guys need from us? Or like ways we could help cut, because I hate, I mean, it sounds like you guys have created all these workarounds, which thank you for doing and going, but it's like what onus can you put back on us to make your guys'
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the board is supporting the superintendent. The superintendent then has the flexibility to be able to work with us and say, yes. Because when we come and say, hey, we would rather do this, and the answer is yes, then, teachers feel empowered that we're doing the right thing as professionals, and I think that has been very helpful. Next year, I just think we're ripe to continue down the path that we're going and be able to look more into this next step for an adoption. When is our ELA adoption? It's not next year.
Next year, following year, 27, 28.
Oh, it is 27, 28, okay.
So maybe not removing key components of a whole curriculum, but just having a plan for that.
I mean, I know nothing about curriculum, but it's just like,
Yeah, one of the things we're working on too, because everything that Kimberly said, plus like this, right there's not this cohesive aligned plan
Yeah.
K-12. It's like we're doing some stuff at this school and then, for example, at the middle school, not in a bad or good way, the middle school and teachers are saying, oh, like we really want to show our students are growing throughout the year. So they don't provide as much scaffolding, or they provide a lot of scaffolding at
Yeah.
the start.
Like the data that you have on here is like, oh, here, write this essay, we're not like giving feedback and letting you modify it versus the high school, they're using an end of term assessment. So those scores are really high. So you see those big gaps in the graph. You see them down all the way to elementary school, where as a district, we're a single high school district, we can come together on this and create a really cohesive writing plan that supports our students K-12.
Cause really like the writing data is interesting, cause like everyone's kind of proctoring from K-12, there's a lot of just different ways we're administering these assessments, so it makes the data like, it's not really an apples to apples comparison from like school to school or from like middle school to high school. So we're creating a writing improvement plan that we'll work on with administrators to then like, how do we fully align rubrics and practices so that we're actually looking at data and able to make sense of it and it's actually useful. So that's another big piece of.
Well, I got excited.
I was just gonna say, because right now, as we've looked at actually a lot of academic measures, the writing has come up as like a red flag of like, there needs to be some clarity and standardization in how we do this, so,
No, I love that word.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was just gonna say, like anecdotally, like from one of my kiddos, it's like. I know the first time he went through sixth grade, like he really struggled with his writing and then had another teacher and it's like, he's like, all of a sudden I love writing. And so I think there's sometimes a big gap too in maybe approaches. And there are some bright spots, like this year is such a bright spot. And so it's like, how do we take those teachers that are totally killing it? That can really take, I mean, if my kid can learn to write well, like she, you know, we're good. So, like almost like this center of excellence.
Yeah, one thing the middle school I think did really well this year is they implemented a writing structure called the CERs. The name
Yes.
of it is reasoning. And when we're in classrooms, we see it throughout I mean, we saw it in health, we see it in English, we see it, I saw one in math. I mean, it's really incredible how much they're writing, and I think that's gonna help, like, I think knowing those structures district-wide is really important. And then the other thing I think we're being really intentional about is as we know that ELA adoption is coming, we're not like, oh, well, we're just gonna wait. Like, we're really, I think, intentionally getting in the classrooms, paying attention, talking to coaches, talking to principals to try make sure that when we get to that year, we're gonna be really well prepared, I feel, as a district.
And also, like, we're getting to use some of the materials of a program that we're very interested in. We wanted to pilot, at Wit and Wisdom. I can pretty much guarantee you, if we would have been able to pilot Wit and Wisdom, we would not have chosen it. It was once we got into the weeds that we're like, this is not what we thought it was. And so, but we have so much positive feedback with Magnetic. And I would love to see what their core program looks like and try it a little bit before we commit to something, because when you choose wrong, it hurts for years.
and Wit Wisdom was very controversial, but it was like, oh no, this is gonna help a ton, and it just hasn't been what I think teachers thought it would be, is that right?
See, sort of was like bubbling right when the timing, right when we chose it, it was like, oh my gosh, it was awful.
What a bummer.
It was not good.
So I think with that said, we're going into the next English language arts curriculum often eyes wide open and doing we need to do a much thorough job of really knowing what we're getting into and not repeat, that same mistake of, this isn't quite what we thought it was.
Yeah. Other things that we'd like to talk about on the elementary page, you've got it spread out by, academic excellence, expanded opportunity, and then targeted supports. Other questions or topics to discuss here before we jump to the next page?
I think one thing that came up in the board meeting, and Joel, you and I have talked about this, is, and I would love to see your perspective probably on it, is like, I don't know if this is cohort specific, but it just, this 4th to 5th grade, like, I'm like, do kids' brains just kind of fall out? Like, I mean, I kind of said it was like our hormones hitting, but it's just, you kind of see this rate of improvement, and then all of a sudden, like from 4th to 5th grade, and then you think about like the 5th graders going into middle school, like that's such a key transition because they get put into tracks and
Which the chat thing, kudos to Marcus. He came to our data meetings again this time, and he's really trying to get his head around what our 5th grade group looks like.
I love
And he is telling us basically over-identify kids you want to be on that high track, because it's a lot easier to say, it's probably not for you, than to say, oh shoot, we missed somebody, and try to catch them up at that point. And so I think that is really valuable. Yeah, it'll be good to have that final data point too, to be able to see like how much growth our students have made. And speaking from just Crooked River's perspective, our fourth grade group has been dreamy since kindergarten. They came in with a lot of parent support.
Mm,
And that makes such a difference. Their behaviors have not been,
Yep.
and they've just been this lovely group that has come through. And next year, it'll be interesting to look at our fifth grade data because they're just a dreamy group of kids. And that just makes it that we can
Yeah.
really teach them.
because that was one thing that, again, just can't tell I just rascal about the data all the time, but
Sure.
like, it's just like, I was like, I would like to see the data as a percent increase year over year, because to your point, Kimberly, it's like you have cohorts that are really high, and then you have, you know, I know Kate's cohort, like, was tough, like, and so it's like, I think that will give us a better visualization of data, like, how kids are moving through this bell curve to rule out, like, okay,
I mean, to me, it looks like third and fourth grade are anomalies right now, just doing an eye test on this, because you would expect the trend.
Yeah.
For the red, you
that's-
lose some and they stay lost, and it keeps going up, but third and fourth are really low in that red zone for that winter.
that's my kids.
And interesting that you said cohort because year after year, we're seeing that in third grade.
Oh, really?
We're seeing a lot of really good progress in third grade.
Do you have any ideas what is attributed to that?
Miss Gonzalez.
State testing prep.
Veteran teachers.
Yeah.
Mhm. Actually, interesting too, so sorry, it's interesting that anytime our third grade teachers have substitutes, the amount of behaviors that come out of it, because it just shows us how on top of behavior our third grade teachers are. I mean, that shows you academically, but the second there's a seven there, it's like, oh my gosh, you guys really keep a lid on the pot.
Yeah.
It is really cool seeing that, if you look at that iReady math benchmark, third grade, you can see they went from 40% red down to 18 just from fall to winter, so they cut that in half, as well as they, you know, almost, they tripled their amount of green, so they're definitely moving kids. One other observation is we talked about that fifth grade cohort. They were the cohort that were kindergarten, their kindergarten year was like full COVID year masks. And we were talking, I want to say earlier today,
Yeah.
of like, and again, you know, we don't want to always have a COVID, be like, but your kindergarten year is such a fundamental year, and you know, especially with learning both language and reading, seeing mouth and how you pronounce things and all that is so important. So that is a cohort that, as we look at that, they were severely impacted as that being their kind of fundamental learning year.
Yeah, but I think the powerful thing is, and I love hearing that Marcus is at your school, it's just like,
Yeah.
we know, here it is, and.
Totally, and that's credit to Bree and Marcus as like this year we've been able to kind of like swing the district back to like data-driven decision making, where we don't have a lot of surprises, you know, like we know where our cohorts are and we know what they're doing, and it's not, oh, where'd this come from, you know, so that's a real benefit.
Anecdotally, with Kim's point too, for the third grade teachers, just having seen a few of them, that's your first year of state testing.
Yeah.
And a lot of teachers get intimidated by that. So the ones that actually stick it out
Yeah,
usually have to be pretty dang good and on top of
that's
it.
true. Yeah.
Ashley, I'm curious with your perspective, any questions or thoughts on the elementary page?
No, I just think third grade's a critical year. I think
Yeah.
they're really growing. I don't know, just all around, just, you know, socially also. And it's just, there's a huge shift. So especially looking at the writing, I know that looks like there's a huge drop, but we're going from second grade where they're writing a paragraph to third grade writing a 5-paragraph essay.
Yes.
So it's just a very big jump.
One of my favorite classes that I've been in here this year was a third grade class where they were doing writing multiple paragraphs as a team. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was incredible. So yeah, I think you point to something really key there about the third graders. Should we shift to secondary?
All right, and you're ready, and
And
Amanda, you guys got a little time off.
on the hot seat
So-
here. So. All right, so over here you can see much different data, still some OSAS, still the writing assessments, which we've touched on, and you can see those differences there that we've discussed. Paying attention to those passing rates, I think in middle school is really important. At high school level, we start really paying attention to credits. So doing the same in another sense with our middle schoolers is important. One of the things I pointed to at the board meeting was our on-track rate as a school district for secondary students is 95%. And I think
Pioneer.
that includes Pioneer. That's really incredible that we have 95% of our students in our district on track. A lot of school districts just look at freshman year and they like fight to get their freshmen on track at 90 to 95%. And, you know, to say that 9 through 12 is there, but Anne knows 2 weeks ago when trimester 2 grades came out and, you know, transcripts are still being finalized, there's kids that get incompletes maybe and are still turning stuff in. I was like, Anne, this is at 93% right now. Are we looking at stuff or what are we doing, you know? So we work as such a cohesive team, I think, to pay attention to that. And then sure enough, 2 weeks later, I pull it, I'm like, hey, we're back. And then the other thing that maybe is a little confusing is the triangles on the bottom right. A lot of research around freshmen on track points to the ABCs, attendance, behavior, and course performance. So we have some stoplight indicators in our tracker for those. The main thing that I think pulls students into yellow and red is attendance, because if they fall below 90% regular attendance, will not be green. And that's missing about 13 days in the school year, a little over 13 days. So other thoughts? I'm really excited about the certifications to date has had a big jump.
So when you say 13 days, that includes for anything, correct? So that can be
Yes.
that vacation to Disneyland, it can be our group that goes to Mexico, it can be.
Yeah.
Sports don't
say,
count.
it can
Sports don't count. School-based activities don't count. Field trips don't count.
But anything else,
Mhm.
it's used for lots.
Yeah, so, and you can imagine that can add up pretty quick. Your family goes on a 3 or 4 day vacation and then you get sick for a few days and
Yeah.
all of a sudden your days are adding up. So it's a tough one.
And
Is
it's-
this CMS percent passing by subject, is that just their grades or is there an assessment?
That's their grade. So pass their classes at the end of the term.
So C or above, or
D or above.
D or above?
Yeah. Post-secondary plans is always fun to look at because that's real time right now. Our counselors and Aspire coordinator are meeting with students, talking to them about their plans. We make sure every senior gets a meeting with our Aspire coordinator to say, what are you doing after high school? And so that's always fun.
One that's interesting on here that I go back and forth in my mind, and the ASVAB. We're still trying to like make sense. Like,
Doing the same thing.
you know, it's just like, there's some benefits to it, and there's also this,
Is there?
you know, I think there is, because we think of our traditional tests around math and English, right? And then we know that Prineville has a lot of kids that, I think it's called mechanical, what's the sub? There's a subtest of like mechanical
Like
comprehension.
mechanical knowledge, I think.
Yeah, where, you know, let's say you've worked in your dad's garage or on a tractor and you're super bright and intelligent you can take apart an engine, put it back together. That's never, we never really give kids credit for that. And it has this, you know, mechanical comprehension, or mechanical knowledge that I think is really cool to say, hey, you really, are strong here. And then I also think as part of the pathways conversations, it helps really inform those of like a student, kind of similar thing, like where you struggled your whole life in school, but like, hey, you really shine in this area that we normally don't assess. So there is some strengths. This is year 1 though, so it like, I still don't know if we're
I think
fully
we
like.
found a better place for it after we started this year. So now we're required to have a careers class by the state, so everybody has to have accredited careers. And so ASVAB has found its home in that class, which makes sense to me. When we were trying to just test the class as a whole, like we were doing all the sophomores, for me, I want it to be relevant to the kids. And so what is that? That means that after that test, we need to have some true conversations about what did your scores mean and how can you take that information and move forward. And careers has given us the opportunity to do that in a smaller setting. So it's meaningful and every kid gets that, you know, 1 to 15, 1 to 20 conversation. And so I think I think of all the places it can be, that's the best place we can put it. And that's with Madeline Tanner, and she does a great job with it. So, but yeah, it is the first year, so we'll see how it goes.
Amanda, what's your thoughts on the secondary page? What things stood out to you?
Oh, I'm taking it in.
Lots to take in.
One other celebration, we don't have anyone from the middle school here, but if you look at that OSAS, English Language Arts proficiency, both ELA and math. Both the district boys and girls are scoring better than the state in nearly just about everything. Just that boys sixth grade ELA is the only one where we're a little bit below the state, but that's always a celebration to say, hey, our students are outperforming the state. So credit to their team. And also looking at that, I mean, if you look girls, eighth grade girls math, the districts our girls are at 41%, the state's at 29. So I mean, double digit 12% over the state. Like that's something to celebrate. And
Yeah.
Credit to the team there.
I also think it's always fun to look back at our graduation rates over time. If you go back to 2012 and you see where we are now, it shows some, that graph is. And then the stability that we've been able to establish since those systems clearly changed, I think is really awesome.
So I'm looking at Pioneer. But still. I'm looking at this data to show me that potentially 30% of Pioneer kids graduated in 2012, 2000.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah. That number also included COIC as
Yeah.
well. It grouped them together. But, and that's actually one of the things we did back in, it would have been 2018, I want to say, where we were sending kids to COIC. It was a different building, good people working hard, but kids would go there and they drop out and they would be out of our hands. So we eliminated our partnership and moved with like the GED program at COIC, but took the work crew part that was working really well and moved it into Pioneer. So, because what was happening is we'd send kids to COIC and it would take 2 weeks for the paperwork. And these were students already at risk on the fringe of dropping out. And then, you start adding all this bureaucratic paperwork and then we'd never see these kids again. So that was probably one of the biggest things we did was to change our relationship with COIC, move the work group portion to Pioneer. Cause we would 30% dropouts and we weren't in control of it, so that was what was hard.
Whatever program you have going right now at Pioneer too, where I almost think kids get paid to do an internship.
Yeah, that's the work crew.
Okay, so we have a gal doing some teaching in our building and she's wonderful at Pioneer. I mean, I don't know in the past if that would have been a thing where they would have been able to find a niche in an elementary school, but she's rocking it.
CMC has a grant right now where they can do the internship piece. The work crew, they always do that. That's part of their annual budget, but the last year they received a grant. I don't know how long we'll have it, but it pays for internship hours so that they can actually explore different careers.
So great. And then those kids that come and work with Jeff Logan, you want something done well and done fast. My gracious.
Yeah. Alright, let's move to these, we kind of hit on, I think, sticks out as celebrations. We've talked about writing as a point of growth for the district. What other areas do you see? What else does the data tell you about where we need to grow?
As we're on that secondary page, and this is the attendance,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Mhm.
Can you tell me again what's considered regular attendance?
Not missing more than 13.5 days in a school year, 90% attendance
That's May 1st.
by May 1st. Yep.
What's that average out to? It's like missing a day every other week, right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
2 days a month.
about 2 days a month, you become a chronic absenteeism. Yeah,
So yeah, attendance is definitely a growth area, and we're doing K-12, we're doing everyone.
yeah, we'll talk about everyone right now.
Math is something. It's something is on our radar to
Mhm.
continue to focus on. That's a K-12 one. The writing alignment piece we talked about.
there anything with that, like the math and writing improvement plans that you all are like, yeah, out of that work, I really want to see this, so.
I think one thing that we've been talking about, and kind of goes back to my question to you, Kimberly, is, and I know Joel, you're thinking about doing some listening sessions with the staff, is, you know, we're gonna go in July and do our planning session, whenever it is, and it's like, my heart would be to really want to understand where there's like structural things like curriculum doesn't work, or like just that are impeding moving people, like, oh, like, you know, it's like, this keeps me up at night, like, how do we move more kids to yellow to green, red to, you know? So if there's like systematic things going on, it's like, I think,
Yeah.
like, the more visibility we have to that,
Yeah.
like, it's.
And it kind of goes to the question is kind of like, what are the like, if you're to ask your teachers, and I have this on my list to ask at our spring listings, I like,
Yeah.
what are the barriers, would teachers say are the barriers from kids moving from red to yellow and yellow to green?
Let's talk about that. What are some of the barriers you all see?
I think one of the key reasons is fluency. And I think, so if you think about fluency with reading, that just takes continued practice. Fluency with math, because middle school will tell you the biggest problem they have is kids that don't come knowing their math facts, because that creates a huge barrier. And
They
that-
don't, I'm sorry.
Not knowing their math facts, like multiplication.
Oh, math facts.
Math
Yeah.
and reading fluency.
And,
Okay,
and
got it.
those things just create like this barrier, and
Mhm.
those are the things that we just need more outside support. Because it's just practice.
Yeah.
And I hate to like point the fingers or blame families, but like if kids could just read for 20 minutes 4 nights a week, if they could just practice this math fact, that would make such a giant difference. And so I talk about, like, you look at our data from Crooked River specifically, for that 3rd grade group last year, again, simply involved families. So, okay, what do we do about that? One thing the district has done is added this tutoring opportunity after school. So we're removing that barrier. I want to see more volunteers in our building, because like if a kid can't read at home, we need to create that within our building. And so those are things that we.
It becomes the equity.
To that extra fluency practice, we would continue to see. Like, we'll teach. We need practice.
I think part of the problem too is the wit and wisdom curriculum doesn't allow for a lot of fluency practice through FIT. There's just, the texts are wonderful, they're beautiful, they're very, very high level. So we're talking 7th grade level reading texts in 3rd grade. And I think that would be the time and time on text that needs to.
So if a kid enters 3rd grade without having that fluency, they're not really gonna get those reps.
And the idea behind wit and wisdom is we would see this giant comprehension jump, because it's all about comprehension. But when the texts are so high, when it's over the kids' heads,
Yeah.
we don't see them comprehension jump, because it's like, I can't read this.
Yeah.
So that's where magnetic is coming in and having smaller bursts for kids, much more grade levels appropriate.
Is there a way we can push, like, as I'm hearing, you want that home stuff, partnering with pre-K programs? So, because I know like Waterford and a few others, Footsteps, whatever, the preschools in town. A lot of those kids I know that either participated or attended were excellent going into kindergarten, like already gaining control. Is there a way that we can platform that better, like get that out to the families before they're in kindergarten and get them
Yeah.
started earlier?
Research also will show you that just reading to your children.
Yes.
That's the power of the bedtime story. Just talking to your children, you go anywhere. I think about this, I look at my parents that line up to drop their kids off at 7:15 every morning, which is way before our doors open. Every single morning. And we still, act with your child. So I think that's really smart though, just to put that research out there to say, there is so much power in just reading to your child, reading with your child, letting your child read to you. It's progression.
But to me, it's also acknowledging, and I know you do this completely, so. It's like, there's always gonna be these families that don't rise to the occasion, and it's like, for whatever reason, no judgment, and so it's just like. How do we protect those kiddos,
And I think that's creating opportunities within, we have their 8 to 3, that's what I tell my people all the time. We don't have their before school, we don't have their after school, but we have their 8 to 3. And if it's not happening, then it needs to happen within our building. And we just need to continue working on getting more people in.
I love the tutoring club. I think that's a great
It's
way
so
to bridge
great.
that gap.
How's it going? Cute.
Great, it's going great, we just need more spaces.
That's what-
And transportation is a barrier.
Yeah.
But even
School
the
bus.
in-school tutoring with the students, the more advanced students dropping down and getting. The more individual, so it's basically shrinking your class size if you've got students helping students.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing if we can get data off of that, how much
Yeah.
it improves. Cause even those kids that are teaching, I think are increasing
Yeah.
competency,
Yeah.
cause that whole see one, do one, teach one thing.
So you guys, we actually probably have the most placed at Crooked River, right, of high schoolers and.
I suppose we have our fifth grade leadership kids reading with their numbers too.
Yeah.
They read it.
Did you guys have middle schoolers coming over at some point?
Do we have middle schoolers that come and read to first graders every Thursday?
Yeah. So I think we just need to like continue to expand that.
Yeah.
The cool thing about us is just the location, though.
Yeah.
It's easy for middle school, where we like, have that luxury.
Yeah.
No, but they are starting a leadership thing where at least you'll have your fourth and fifth graders starting to help more. Yeah,
Even high school, we're the closest,
Yeah.
so. We'll take it. But
So fluency is a barrier, like just continue to. Any other, I mean, I think of like from district office or school board, like any other like other barriers like that we could look. Cause this whole yellow zone after school tutoring, that was just, we had some extra club funds. So doing something like that from day one, I think makes a lot of sense. We have that section fall, winter, spring. Anything else you can think of? Like what your teachers would say? Ashley Hawkins, any? perspective?
Yeah, I think transportation is a huge barrier for the after school programs. The kids that ride the buses home, they really do struggle to get to those after school programs. So parents that pick up regularly, those are the kids that you see. And then we have the kids club kids that we regularly see. But I do see the transportation being a barrier. And a lot of times those are our kids that are in that yellow zone.
that's gonna be a hard one to overcome, especially with all your transportation people. Is there a way that you could get special transportation
So
for the clubs?
She was working on this like 4 years ago. All we need is 2. You can do it with 2 drivers. So you run your normal after school routes at 3:45 or 2:45 for elementary. And then we would just need a special, we could do it with our type 20s, where you just run a separate route for all the athletics and after school clubs. And you only need 2 drivers. I mean, it's a lot, cause like, but you have one driver do, this side of town plus Juniper Canyon, and then you have another driver do the other side of town. So it'd be long routes, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I bet we could get someone to do it.
We were just talking about it the other day and how, like, I do think it's something we feel would have a really big impact to say, let us alleviate the stress for you families having to transport your kid.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
We will take care of that. I mean, getting kids connected and reducing any barriers connection is front of mind for us, so.
If we just had 2 drivers. I mean, they make more money, and you'd say, hey, do you wanna run a second route? I could work with Lindsay on what those 2 routes would look like.
Yeah.
It'd be late, but it'd be worth like piloting in the fall.
Well, even when I was coaching mountain biking, you would be surprised how many kids would just ride their bike to practice because they could, because they just didn't want to be home by themselves.
Yeah.
And it meant that they got out of the house and got to see people. And so I think there's a lot of kiddos that don't want to, I mean, they're probably the same kids who go home to an empty house,
For
like,
sure.
yeah, I think one of the things that's helped tremendously is you supporting having kindergarten IAs back. We have 2 kindergarten IAs now. It would be amazing to get back to 1 IA per kindergarten. That would make a tremendous. And then one of the things we've done in Crooked River is we use IA FTE differently, and so we put in IA first grade too. And that person is constantly pulling. If we had a second grade IA that was constantly pulling, because K1-2 is when we need kids to learn how to read.
Mhm.
So if I could get an IA in second grade and 2 more IAs in kinder, that would be dreamy. I know this year and next year and the year after, I don't know if the years to talk about that, that's a long-term idea.
Yeah.
Because they're just pulling reading kids all day long. That's what we need more of.
But if we have like a pathway of high schoolers who, I mean, we even haven't. Like
You're teaching one.
teaching one, like, I mean.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
we,
Which
like,
is great. It's nice to have somebody trained in like
Not reliable.
programs and like the same consistent person every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why our first grade data looks so great. We've got one person who's dedicated to
Yeah.
pulling reading kids all day long.
we'll find a graph. Should we talk to Facebook?
He's because of fun people, but yeah, I think.
That's a pipe dream. That's a.
I don't think it's a
but-
pipe dream, like, I mean, I think sometimes we look at this data and we're like, what do we do? It's like, if we know.
Mhm.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think continuing to look at key staffing, well, and it might not even be ads, like how do we leverage? And guys, we're around 500 employees, like,
Yeah.
how do we leverage our staff to maximize our goals, right? Is aligning staff with the targets you need, so.
Which in a lot of our IA staff is sped and they are working with kids all day long.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, they are working with kids with learning disabilities. And then we have title, yes, they're working with our red zone. But our kinder and our first, they're more working with those yellow zone kids.
Yeah.
And so, yes, leveraging. You have to use your people the right way. So if you were just to add people, that's not gonna make a difference. If you add them and use them properly.
Yeah.
We could see a huge.
Yeah.
What about when we think about kids and Amanda at the secondary level that are yellow, red zone, what barriers are they facing and how can we address those?
I think for us, a really big one is attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we address that? $1 million question.
This one's super interesting because we've tried, push for hard on families and there's significant pushback. And part of it's like very understandable, like, hey, don't take your kids hunting. And then it's like, no, this is something our family has done for generations. Like, this is a key part of it. And it's like, well, I get that. You know what I mean? So there's, and that's just one example. But yeah, there's a tricky thing, and especially where, we've talked a lot, like, we've got families where the kid has straight A's and they're like, hey, we're taking a family trip to Hawaii. We've been saving up for 3 years for this. My kid's okay, and your kid misses 10 days. Like it's just more complex than it looks at face value.
It is, and I think that there's a huge economic piece of it as well, because the amount of students that are not at school because they are watching a little sibling, they are taking care of grandma, they are taking dad to the whatever office and interpreting, they have a job, they are, I mean, like, the economic piece of it is a huge in high school.
Yeah. That was something that really emerged for me when I did my dissertation, was that the barriers kids face are not singular when it comes to attendance. They're often very multifaceted, and the solutions are really like complex, like things, some schools cited things like doing laundry for kids, making that super like,
Yeah.
what are those barriers? How do we, I think of Michelle Jonas at Pioneer and the system that she's provided for kids. For our kids in poverty that are really struggling, like, how can we do better? Because I think that's where you end up getting some kids to show up. Does that curb your chronic absenteeism rate? No, probably not, because those kids are still gonna miss a lot of school no matter what because of life situations. But helping get them there more days is really important. But
Yeah.
that's a tough one to tackle.
I
And it
imagine,
doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
I imagine at some point, like. Okay, but just for the like logic of it all, right? Like, let's just say there's probably gonna be a chunk of absenteeism we can't solve for, right? Like. There's that. And it's like, okay, but are there other things where we can control where, like, cause I'm assuming if I put myself in that kiddo's spot, at some point they're just like, I give up, like. Like, how do we prevent kids from, like, at some point disengaging and being like, no matter how hard I try, I just can't manage all of this.
Mhm.
Like,
I think that is actually really good. The point of like, if you look, our regular attendance rate is 67%. Like, that's bad. And that is the state average, right?
Mhm,
And
so
so,
that's
but
good.
and like, my thought is like, there's like 10 to 15%. So that knocks you down to like 85%.
Mhm.
That 15%, I mean, their level of needed support is like, they have to work or they have to take care of it. But then that like from like 85 to 67, like
Yeah.
I think that 20% is
Yeah.
manageable because before COVID, and
Mhm.
I know things changed with COVID, the high school typically was right
Yeah.
at 80 to 82%.
Mhm.
So there is like this 13% gap that I think like,
Mhm.
oh, I think we can. And I don't know, and
Yes.
it's not easy and it's
No.
not like simple, but I think there is that 13% that we can impact,
Mhm.
to get into that 80 to 85 range.
I think it's really paying attention to those kids and their grades too, so they see the academic impact of families, see the academic impact of them missing. Cause those with not extreme chronic absenteeism, but on the bubble.
but do they always care? Because like, I think there's some
Yeah.
families that have a mindset, like, well, it's good enough, and so it's like, well, this is interesting, you being a C, and we're like,
I think that kind of connects to like our Building Bridges initiative and like Kimberly was saying earlier about fluency and how do we connect kids at home and how do we, I think it's all one big picture, a little bit of just establishing really good relationships with families, K through 12, so that's lasting. So there's a level of trust there.
Two things for this too. Have we asked those that aren't being a regular attendance why they're missing? And have we asked them what we could do to get them back?
I'm sure the counselors probably have.
Yeah, we asked that a lot. I've done a lot of work when I was at the high school. I'd track barriers and stuff. A lot of times academic planning is something that helps bring kids back or like connecting them to goals. Will sitting down with them and their family and saying, like, okay, we're doing an attendance contract and this is what's gonna happen when you don't, so kind of putting those kind of things into place oftentimes help, but not always, but they're helpful sometimes.
And here's the tricky thing about that, how the state's counting chronic absenteeism, because when we think like, oh, you're chronically absent, oh, this is this rough family that, doesn't care about school or the kid's not engaged. But if you think 13 days over the course of a year, so you go hunting, that's 5. And you do that in October. And then, hey, there's a family trip, so we're gonna miss 4 more days, so that's 9. And then you're sick 4 days over the course of that month. Okay, all of a sudden you're chronically absent. So there's like, that's what's tricky is like great families, great students that care, they still hit that mark. And then when we push back, like, all right, don't go hunting or don't go that trip, then families are like, screw you, school district, like,
Yeah.
this is important for my family and I only have so many of these days with my kids. So it's a real nuanced problem.
Yeah. We've got 5 minutes left, or about 5 minutes left. As we plan for next year, because that's what a lot of time is being spent on right now. What are we missing? What holes do you see? Where should the focus be? Anything we haven't discussed yet that we want to make sure we do.
The things on my are the writing improvement,
Yep.
the math improvement. Those are like big pictures.
Yeah.
I think Kimberly, your point around the fluency for both of those at the elementary level is huge. I think we need to continue to align our elementary schools, like
Yep.
those promising practices around like your partnerships with homes with your what do we call it, nailing it math, or is it still nailing it?
Still nailing it.
It's still nailing it.
always be nailing math.
And we've taken we've taken some good steps, but figuring out the ASVAB.
Figuring out the ASVAB, I think that's an action item for us to follow up on. What?
Ashley, Amanda, I don't talk to you as much as I talk to everyone else in this room. What are we missing here?
I, as an elementary teacher, I think really hitting fluency on both math and reading is important. And again, not really sure what happened with 7th grade writing, but I looked at that one and I was like, that's odd. Is that, just or is there something?
That is the way that they interpreted how they were giving the assessment. So they initially, like think of SLGGs and doing a pre-assessment where your students score really low, and then by the end of the year, they should be
Okay.
scoring really, really high. So that's how they interpreted that.
Gotcha.
Which is
That's like
something
this,
we're,
like you always start in the red,
Okay.
even if you're on track.
Yeah.
But we want to
So,
fix that
In
alignment.
elementary school, where we're seeing an opinion writing, an informative writing, and a narrative writing.
Yeah.
They really saw pre-assessment versus
Mhm.
mid-year versus a post.
Secondary is all on the same mode of writing.
Gotcha.
Right, well, a few of them switch, but not, yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I just really like this data, that we have laid out. And I love the time to really dig in and unpack and have conversations. I would love to see more teacher representation. Kelsey couldn't be here, her daughter had surgery, but, I mean, just hearing from people who are teaching, I think is so critical, and I think that's what you guys as board members need more.
I like the idea of, just because now that we have kind of our dashboard rhythm and system back, like, what if we structured this committee next year to like, if, because we covered at the board meeting, but we just like scratched the surface, because then we have the building bridges page, the connect one, and it's like this long, it's this public meeting that we don't want to spend.
Cause you
Right.
start looking at me like, please do not.
You've reached your max on that. Question. But I love like if this committee could like morph into. Here are the key indicators we're looking at, and we have this data ready that we're already planning, so that way it's more like a line system.
Yeah, because I really don't ever want these metrics to feel like, oh, this is just what the boards report, this is what's, I want this to feel like something that teachers are heavily engaged in the voice of, and so that way it's like,
I think this is good data for teachers to have.
Yeah.
Because we don't always see it laid out like this.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important that they do see it.
Yeah.
How you.
Ideally, I would love to have this meeting before a board meeting, cause sometimes we look at this data. And then we start arguing.
That's a really good idea, yeah.
Well, we start arguing amongst each other.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's this, and it's like, we don't know, like, we're not in the classroom.
I think that's something.
Yeah,
yeah, I love that.
I'd actually like to see a little bit more, we've got the intervention for the yellow and red zones, right? I'd like to see some sort of intervention program for the absentee students.
I think
So,
that's
and by
happening.
intervention, I mean like offering other alternatives, whether that's, hey, we've got this online program or Grizzly Mountain. If you're gonna be gone for a little while, why don't you check in with this and keep on track?
You should have Joel show you Jake Hoffman's spreadsheet where they list all the interventions that
Yeah.
I should look at that.
You
Yes.
should,
Hey,
you should look at the spreadsheet.
you wanna see the.
I will do that. I will look at a spreadsheet.
It's actually like,
No, that's interesting. It actually, I'm legitimately independent.
it's not making fun of all of it. The high school, like, that system of like tracking students, I mean. It's, whenever the OD comes and like audits, they're always like, this is super impressive
Yeah.
and better than most districts are doing.
Joel and I both really love the high school tracker, there's a deep connection to that.
At a full level.
Yeah,
Very
for sure,
comprehensive.
yeah, but it should be.
There's colors.
There's lots of colors, as there should be. I think that this committee has been so important. I really love the idea of having this data presented with teachers, with some administrators before.
That would be super
saying.
helpful.
You're gonna get us up to a sprint at the board meeting
Yeah.
if we do that, I think,
I'm
but
just saying, we like have student representation,
Yeah.
maybe we need to have teacher representation, like it'd be even like interesting if somebody wants to come in and like. Give some context of the teacher perspective before we even talk about it.
yeah, yeah.
Like Sophie
would
does.
Want to include all board members on, because then if you just have two people who are in the know, then it's
Yeah.
almost the same situation where the
Yeah.
other three are trying to get.
Well, that's what I was saying at the board meeting, having a teacher present, be like, oh,
I thought
yeah.
I wanted to talk about it from the
Yeah.
board meeting.
Or maybe some of the
No, we can't
programs
use-
that we're talking about, have the teacher that is interested in it presented.
so we'd have this meeting and then somebody from this meeting. Would present and be like, hey, like, according, this is what kind of our readout of our teacher, like the fluency thing, really, as we looked at this data, this is what.
Okay.
Rose to the top from our perspective, because. Then it cuts down some of the noise when like Eric and I start arguing with each other and neither one of us are in a classroom. There's actually somebody who's actually dealing with this data.
We can argue with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should see that spreadsheet.
I want to, you keep teasing it.
But yes, thank you so much for your time. I know it's a lot to stay after a school day of teaching and to be here, and so we really appreciate everyone being here. And that's, I think this is our last meeting of the year, isn't it? Is that weird?
Are you a little sad?
A little sad.
It is so funny. I wrote in my stuff, it's like, feels like you get like Christmas, January drags on, and then it's just like February, March, April, and then you're like, we need to start planning next year. It's just kind of hits, so.
Right, with,
One last
That-
thing, we need to drop the A in PAHS.
Yeah.
Wow. Grammar.
Hey,
No, that was a board,
Important.
that's a board action.
all right, with this, the meeting is adjourned at 5 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
I'll send you the